Okay, we're here. We're live. And for some reason, the little intro didn't play. I'm sorry about that.
We don't need music.
This is Barb Wallace setting the tone for this week's show. But hello, everybody. I hope that if anyone's listening, you welcome to Off the Shelf. I am Barb Wallace, and I am here with New York Times best-selling author Donna Allward. And we're going to spend the next few minutes, maybe 20 minutes or so, diving into Vanessa Riley's Sister, Mother, Warrior. But before we do, what's up, Donna? Any big milestones this week?
Yeah, I turned 50 on Sunday. So I celebrated with cake and Prosecco. And my real birthday present is coming a little later because I'm going on a trip. So with my husband. So that's kind of my big birthday present to myself. Other than that, I'm just sort of, what is it Stephen King says? Shoveling, you know what, from a seated position. That's kind of where I'm at.
I know that world well.
What are you up to, sweet pea?
Not a lot. I have told people before, we have a boat in the marina 4 hours away. So our life is every Friday driving to the marina and sailing for a couple days, then coming back. And we're winding down. I think we have one more weekend, and then I'm calling it a rest.
It's not a bad life.
No, it's not. Actually, it's not. St. Albans, Vermont is very nice if anyone cares. So Vanessa Riley's Sister, Mother, Warrior. This is a book about two 18th century women. It's Grantoya, who was an enslaved Dahomey warrior, and Marie Claire Bonheur. Did I pronounce it right, you think? Bonheur? A free Black woman, and they both played very key roles in the Haitian Revolution. In fact, basically, would you agree, if Grantoya wasn't there, Haiti wouldn't be free?
Yeah, I agree with that.
She is probably one of the most badass women I have ever read.
I know.
Yeah, she was pretty remarkable. If the name sounds familiar, it's because every single recommended read list this summer has featured this title.
Yeah.
And you see it. I think, did Oprah do it? But I know that all the others, like BuzzFeed and all those, it's listed as a book you must read.
Yeah, and then Book Bubble come out with their list of what to read this summer. And there was a really great review in the Historical Novel Society. And so it's been getting lots of buzz.
Lots of buzz. And we're kind of excited to pick it apart and see why.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's start with the cover.
Oops. Bring it up, sister.
There we go. Look at that.
I actually really like this cover. I like that it does the blue and red. So Haitian flag colors, if I'm remembering right. I like the depiction of the two women. It's very clear which one is Toya and which one is Marie Claire. And it's consistent with the branding of her last book.
Yeah. Her last book was Island Queen, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
Which was one of our favorite books of the year.
Yeah.
And yet I think the type is actually very similar. So it is very similar.
Yeah, I thought that they kept the branding really consistent while still making it very unique.
Yep. It's the funny story is I went into Barnes & Noble to buy this, and I knew what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it on the shelf. Like, it was in the front row in the bestseller shelf, and I couldn't find it. I think that not because it doesn't stand out, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, bright colors, it's really going to stick out. I think Vanessa had the bad luck of a bunch of books with red covers coming out at the same time. And so she blended in because they put her with the red covers. If they put her with other covers, she'd be fine. I think in this particular store, she was by colored covers that were very similar. And I was like, look at all this red. Which one's her? And a friend of mine.
Yeah. Well, especially if it's similar color schemes, then they tend to blend a little bit.
Exactly. So I think it was just bad luck in this one particular store. And hopefully it's not the same in the other stores. Because I agree. I think it's very, very bright.
I bought it on Kindle because when I looked, I'll be honest, when I looked at the hardcover price, I kind of swallowed my tongue a little bit. So I bought it on Kindle. Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were your overall impressions?
I was out for a walk before, like just after dinner tonight, And I was trying to think of what words I would use to describe it. And like one of the words that came to me was masterful. Like I really felt like she had mastered so much. It's got we were talking before the broadcast. The scope of this book is huge.
Yep.
The writing is beautiful. And I felt like everything that she did within it was intentional and precise. Like, I don't think there was anything in there that wasn't really considered before she put it in. It just felt very deliberate to me. And I think it's a huge story.
It's gigantic. I mean, the Haitian Revolution took 45 years.
Yeah, it's not like this was, like even when you think about like the Civil War, it's 4 years, right? This is a whole generation of rebellion.
Yeah, and she had to cover the precursor too, with the simmering leading up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the word I came up with, masterful, is a good one. I think I was explaining to someone else that like there's a whole bunch of writers who are very good writers, and then there's a handful that you would elevate up and say, oh my God, they're amazing. You know, Kate Quinn is one, Beatrice Williams is one. I would put Vanessa Riley in that category.
I would too. I think
especially having read Island Queen, which was perfect.
Yeah. I think this comes across too as very literary.
Yep.
I think I would say that.
I think so too. And I think that it was but you could feel the anger. She did a very good job of, hi Sue.
Yeah, I just saw Sue come up. Hi guys.
Yeah, I thought she did a really good job of portraying the anger that simmered underneath the whole time. It was a very complex book. I don't think a lesser writer could even comprehend doing a book like this.
No.
I mean, I tried to write out all the different themes that she had, and she had the colorism, you have slavery, you have the revolution itself, which was the most hard to follow, complex. They backstabbed each other back and forth. I mean, it was the French, the British, the Americans, the Spanish, and the Haitians, and then the different types of Haitians. And she had the different African communities. I mean, it was so, and then she had the relationships and all that. They were all wedged into the sisters and the heroines, and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who ultimately became the Emperor of Haiti, and that she was juggling, had to be like 60 balls. And that she
wove them all together.
She did. And masterful is the perfect word for that. Dense is another word.
Dense is another word.
Crammed a generation in 400 pages.
Yeah. And like, it's really, really ambitious.
Yeah.
And like I said, in the hands of a lesser writer, probably wouldn't have been as well done as it was, I guess.
But didn't you love Grand Toya?
I loved her. And I will say that, I don't know if we are going to talk about this after. Well, we are going to talk about strong female characters, but I think of the two storylines, I gravitated to hers the most, I think. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. And I think because really when we see her, it's
the cover again.
Early on in the book, when we see her, she's young, but then it's not long before she becomes the warrior. Whereas with Marie Claire, we see more of the family ins and outs with her mother, her grandmother, with Elise, with other family members. And I had a harder time sort of relating to her at the beginning. But Grand Toya, like, she was just badass, and she was not afraid to stand up to Duclos, which was...
Yeah, I think I grew to like Marie Claire a lot towards the end, because she really got a backbone at the end.
Yeah.
And she really came into her own, and that her priority was not the same. Grand Toya's priority was battle, winning freedom. And, they both cared about the people of Haiti, but in different ways. And Marie Claire's was... I know in the notes she says it was before Florence Nightingale. there was Marie Claire.
Right.
And that's
And
what her job was, to take care of the poor, feed the sick, feed the people who were hurting. And she cared about the people of Haiti in that different way.
right. And when you were saying, like, in your notes here, you put like the need for strong female characters and how women were portrayed. I felt like both women were women of power. It's just
Yeah.
that their strengths were different. They had different strengths, but they used them. And so I really like that they were both women of power, and they didn't. I mean, they were really proactive women who really played a huge role, but they were also completely different. You know, one was a warrior and one's more of a healer, and so just approaching it from two different angles, and I really like that.
I did too. And I liked that neither of them were, neither of them had any regrets about the decision. Well, I shouldn't say that. Toya has some regrets that she feels like she
Right,
has to repay. But as far as the things she did in battle, she didn't have regrets.
right,
And Marie Claire made some decisions to save her family. That there's a scene where at the end we're towards the middle where she lists all the things she did, and people want her to feel ashamed. And she's like, I have no shame for what I did. I did it for my family.
yeah,
And, you know,
like
she's very
whatever.
secure on who she is and what her decision she made.
Yeah, and whatever they did, they owned it,
Yeah,
right?
that's the right way to put it. They owned
which,
their mistakes and they owned their successes.
which is empowering in itself. Like not just owning, like you said, your successes, but also your failures. That's really empowering because then no one can use that against you if you own it,
Oh yeah.
right?
The other thing I thought was interesting was I had, well, a bunch of things were interesting. I learned a lot in this book. Thomas Jefferson does not come out well. Let's just say that.
Surprise, surprise.
And spoiler alert, Haiti wins. But other than that, that was what I told Donna today. I'm like, spoiler alert.
Yeah,
But what's the word I want? The divide between the colorism, the divide between the
yeah,
light skinned blacks and the dark skinned blacks and different tribes in Africa, which, just as an aside, I thought she did a great job of portraying that she didn't paint them all as Africans. She painted them as different countries, like the way we should. And Americans, especially white Americans, have a really bad habit of calling Africa a country, and it's
yeah,
not. It's a continent. So I think she did a really good job of reminding us that there are all different languages and different people. But the divide between all the different skin colors was very interesting. It's like,
I agree. I felt like it almost operated like like a caste system because
yeah,
you had the Grand Blanc and then you had Le Petit Blanc, which, you know, like
white
big
people.
whites, little whites. And then you had, you know, you had slaves, you had La Franchise, which, you know, they were the free men. And there were just, and each one, like if you look at even Marie Claire going out with Elise, and the differences in the colors of their skin and how they were treated
Yep.
based on how much black was in your skin.
Right. So mulattoes were a level ahead, and then there was blacks, then there were slaves. So like
Yeah,
that I thought was really interesting. Like even they divided themselves up too, rather, and it took
yeah,
Jean-Jacques to unify them in order to get freedom. But I thought that was I didn't really. She did a really great job of making that real.
yeah,
You know, there's some scenes in there where you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize that's how they treated each other. But that's
yep,
so I found that really cool. And the other thing I thought was, well, obviously she did a great job of making you really uncomfortable with the concept of slavery,
as we should be.
as we should be, but even more so. I mean, like it's one thing to say yes, slavery was wrong and we shouldn't do it, but when you're confronted with some of the violence and cruelty, and she did a great job of making you see the cruelty and making you really understand why the black people were so angry and how mistreated they were. And there were some scenes that were pretty uncomfortable. And you're like, I can't believe a human being would do that to another human being.
Yeah,
And you're
there's
like,
one scene probably a third of the way through with two of the boys on the plantation
yes,
or on the habitation that Toy is close to, and the way that they are dealt with for not coming back from their free time exactly on time. Really disproportionate and cruel. And like I said, I don't know how human beings can treat other human beings that way, other than the fact that they didn't see them as human beings.
That's it. And some of those examples really brought home just how little they thought of their slaves.
I found that one in particular really
that was very uncomfortable to read.
Yeah, really.
Which is why I'm glad she included it, because I think that
100%.
She showed a lot of the cruelties, which then when the revolution happened and it was very bloody and violent, but you felt, but it's justified. Look what they were doing to these people.
Yeah.
And so I think she did a really good job of setting the table and explaining just how awful their lives were and why they would revolt.
Yeah.
And, moving it beyond an academic theory to us really seeing people.
I think too, as the story went on, so I struggled a little bit with the beginning, just sort of trying to find my feet and be anchored into the story. And I think it's because it was setting up a lot with both characters. But I did find that as the story went on, the balance between Toya's storyline and Marie Claire's storyline was really good.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel like one was weighted in favor of the other too strongly. You know what I mean?
No, and they tied together. I mean, sometimes you wonder how they're going to put two people together and connect them. And sometimes the connection's kind of weak.
Yeah.
I'll use an example. Last month, we really liked the librarian spy. The connection between those two, the two women, it was two really great storylines, but the connection between them was a little weak. Was that in that the one was communicating?
It was arbitrary, I think, was kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah. Whereas they're tied together through one man.
Through one man.
Yeah. And it's Jean-Jacques is Grand Toya's son, and then there's Marie Claire is his lover / wife. And they're tied together through that, and the fact that they were so opposite yet so dedicated to the same cause. It was really, I really liked both these women, and I'm glad the story got told.
Dedicated to the same cause and the same man, which was, just in different ways. So, and I think every time I read something more, I was like, and then I read the author's note at the end.
Oh yeah.
And then if you look at the bibliography, I'm like, oh my God, the amount of research.
Almost as long as the book.
I know, right? It was like, I'm like, wow. The amount of research that went into this book. And you can really tell too, because even how, like, when you're talking about colorism, it's also language.
Yep.
So, proper French versus Creole, versus, whatever. And then the fact that she actually wrote out those dialects. Like,
oh yeah.
And it was so much.
Well, and then she went into the different tribes in Africa, because part of it takes place in Africa.
Yeah.
And about the tribes that are conquered and their traditions and what they did. And then she comes over here and she's
the scarification
and how they merged the different traditions and what they created. I mean, the amount of research she did just was astounding. And the fact that Island Queen, we know, took her 10 years to write. I don't think this one took her 10 years to write. So for her to pull it, and we should note that she does have a job. Like, she has a day job. So the amount of stuff that she pulled together and the amount of research she did, it's astounding.
Astounding.
And it shows up, but she never once gives you a lecture.
No.
It was never once an info dump.
No, it's like I said before, it's always just very intentional and precise, like surgical.
Yeah.
How, like, there is nothing wasted.
A lot like The Diamond Eye with Kate Quinn, which you and I both read, where she laid out battle strategies and the war and the politics of the war.
And
but
sniper terminology and
yeah.
And
that's the same thing. She never once sat there and gave us a long explanation of how Napoleon was working. It was just all done through dialogue and action on the page. It was really, really well done.
I know, it gives you like either like writer envy or just like makes you feel like a total hack, right?
Well, I totally had not worthy vibes. I told.
Yeah,
I said,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have not.
Same.
Okay, so now
Same.
after we gush, do we have any weaknesses or any down points?
Yes. um,
Okay.
it's funny because I went and looked up some, like, because it had been on so many lists, I thought, oh, there must be some other, opinions and reviews and stuff out there. And so I was doing a little reading, and I found a quote out of one review that I think encapsulates my problem. And I had said to you a couple of days ago that sometimes I found it hard to feel intimate with the characters as much as I liked them, to really feel intimate with them. And so the quote I found is, and I'll read it because I wrote it down, and it's from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It says, if only the novel focused more on their emotional perseverance set against the backdrop of the Haitian Revolution and not the other way around. So it really felt like the revolution was the center of the story, and it wasn't as character driven as I might have liked.
Yes.
More like I think maybe some of that was sacrificed in order to. I mean, we just said the scope of this book is huge,
Right.
and the story is hugely important. So I think maybe some of that intimacy was with the characters was sacrificed for that, which is okay.
I think, I would say that, yeah, we didn't need all the battles and everything, but Grantoya was a warrior. She fought in all those battles. By the way, she was like in her late 50s, early 60s. So, hey.
Rock on.
Go rock on. But so I think she had to do it. But I think that you just said hit the nail on the head for me. There was so much information that there were times I was getting confused over the politics and who's doing this and who's doing that. And I was like, I could have used a cast of characters. That probably would have helped me because, with someone married, they immediately became pair. And it's like, but I thought he was dead. Like I was getting confused sometimes. And I was like, that would have been helpful. But I mean, that's a nitpicky thing because we just finished saying this is an incredibly complex book.
Yeah.
So it's,
like I can't imagine, but I did feel like that was that the it wasn't characters against the backdrop of the revolution. It was the revolution, and then sort of as told through two characters. So it's just that sort of balance thing. But that's really it. That's really it. Like there's just reading through it. You're just I'm amazed at the actual writing, and like the prose is so beautiful, and the voices are the characters, right? So the way that she writes isn't like the language suits the time, the characters. It's writer envy.
You didn't read Island Queen, did you?
No, not yet. It's on my Kindle.
Of the two, I would say Island Queen was my more favorite. It's just as masterful. And you should read it because Shonda Rhimes bought the rights, I heard. That was a rumor I heard. And if that's the case,
it's more focused though, isn't it?
Give it the Shonda treatment. Read it first, so before it becomes.
Yeah.
But I can only ask you a question though, because it has gotten tons of buzz, and I can see why it got buzz. It's got powerful women. It's got it's a diverse author who deserves to be read. It's a great story. It's beautifully written. So why is it sitting at like number 300,000 on Amazon? Like it's not.
I don't know.
I would have thought this book would be, given it's on every list, it would fly off the shelves. I have a personal theory, but I'm curious to hear yours.
I think you should tell me yours and then I'll nod because I really don't know why it's not doing better.
My theory is that this is a hardcover book. And you said it yourself, it's a $30 book. It's by an author who's new to this genre. She's very well known in the romance world, but Vanessa's only written a couple books in the literary world.
Right.
And it's about slaves in Haiti. And if I'm buying books, now we bought it because we were like, "Ooh, it's Vanessa Riley. We have to read this book.
Right.
Like, we know how good she is."
Right.
But I think that for some people, if given a choice between, do I want to read about the Haitian Revolution, or do I want to read Lee Childs or Janet Ivanovich, or a tried and true? Oh, look, there's Pam Jenoff. They're going to choose the tried and true versus the unproven,
Right.
because it's an economic downturn, and I think she had the bad luck of doing it. It's a hard sell to begin with. The Haitian Revolution is not an easy sell. And I think that because it was a hardcover, this is the one time that I would say it's too bad they gave her a hardcover deal. I think if it was paperback, she would do way better.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's probably coming out in paperback later. But I would agree with that, because other than Island Queen, like, this is only her second literary.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So she hasn't really had time to build up a big readership in that genre or arena yet.
Right.
And so people are probably less likely to take a chance on someone they've never read at $27 for a hardcover.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And they'll wait. And honestly,
particularly when gas is $5 a gallon and people are, it's expensive right now. So
yeah,
think about where they spend their money.
Well, and groceries, and I mean, it is tough. And to be honest, there've been lots of times where authors have come out in hardcover, and I'm like, I'm just gonna wait for the paperback, because and so and not that I won't buy that book eventually, because I will, but that I wait for the paperback to come out.
Yeah, I think that's why I was so excited when they said that Island Queen got picked up for a TV treatment or a movie treatment, because I'm like, then they'll discover her.
Yeah.
And then they'll reissue it with a new cover too. It'll fly off the shelves, and then after that, all her books will go.
And I think, and they'll reissue it with a new cover, the TV tie-in cover.
Right. But I think that's what she needs, because it's really hard to break out in hardcover when you're a new author. And I mean, it's funny because I'm actually like, I don't think I want my agent to give me a hardcover deal. I think I'd want my first book to be paperback, just because. Now, financially, you want the hardcover deal. Let's not be.
Yeah, I guess.
But and it is a real sign of. I think it's a real sign of confidence that her publisher had that they gave it to her.
Yeah.
And I know she's got another book coming out because she's working on it.
But it's a shame though, because as dense and complex as this book is, I think this is something that we really need to start reading about. Like, because honestly, anytime I think about reading a story about slavery, it's always like on U.S. soil. It's never about, what happened in Haiti, or very rarely slavery in England, which, I mean, was abolished ahead of the U.S. But, so these are the kinds of things that, I'm super happy that authors of color are writing, and we need to be reading.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's very few that are, I mean, even a lot of the authors of color, they're writing about American history, historical fiction, because that's their world. That's their American. I'm not going to beat them up because I did the same thing.
No.
But so Vanessa's one of the few that is writing about the Caribbean. And Caribbean, I have no idea how to.
Well, it's such a different perspective, because I don't know about you, but like, the history of slavery in the Caribbean is not something that I have ever, I don't know anything about it. Well, I know a little more now.
I know a little bit from this and Island Queen and a couple other books, but it's not something they teach. And actually, when I said Jefferson didn't come out well, and it made me realize just how whitewashed American history is. And I was like, oh, I didn't know, didn't even look at it that way, but that is 100% correct what he did. And it's not how it's taught in American history. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
It opened my eyes to a few things. And I think the more I read these kind of books, the more open my eyes become. So
history is only as accurate as the person telling that perspective.
Well, and I mean, and Vanessa's smart. She tells you where she took liberties and stuff. But
I mean, where history books are, and the fact that let's face it, history has always been white and male.
Yep.
Right? Like it's
Oh yeah.
the history that we're taught is so wrapped in colonialism. So we need to start hearing more stories that show that that's not necessarily accurate.
Well, it's like even it sounds from this author notes, and I could be wrong, but it sounds like even in Haiti, it was very black and male. Like women are written out all the time. Women get erased from history, and it sounds like once again, the two women she wrote about are people who you should know about, and they're because they were so
And we're
successful.
pivotal.
I'm sorry.
They were pivotal.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much credit they get. Maybe they do. I mean, to be honest, I'd never read a Haitian history book, so I'm not. But it was
Right.
like I said, it was very eye opening.
Yeah.
So recommend.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Two thumbs up. Yeah. Really, I cannot believe that Vanessa Riley. I think they said this on Twitter. Why is this woman not on the New York Times list? Buy the book. I want her books. She does. She did not make a list yet, and it's ridiculous because she's one of the best writers out there.
The writing is so strong.
Yeah. No, she's marvelous.
That's cool.
It's a
crime. Cool. People buy the book.
Yeah, it's a crime that she's not on the New York Times list. So, but next month we're going to get a little lighter.
Yeah.
We have a special guest coming. I hope I pronounce her name right. It's Lindsay Mugarar. I have no idea. I come from a family where my mother pronounced it Walmart for her entire life. So, not making that up.
Okay, you get points for effort, Barb.
Heading down to Walmart. Anyways, she recommended we read A.J. Pierce's Dear Mrs. Bird, which is the first book in a series. It's a World War II series and it's about a like a agony aunt kind of column during World War II, and how she's solving people's problems and doing battle with the French.
In my wheelhouse.
It is so in your wheelhouse. And it's an English book, so this is the American version of an English title.
Are they going to Americanize it?
I don't know.
Like the spelling and stuff? I
don't know.
Not.
I just bought the book, and it's got a cool title, cool cover. It's like little type keys and stuff. But it's a much lighter read. There's not going to be. I mean,
I'm looking forward to that.
We're not going to be using the word dense, in terms of like research and stuff. I think it's a much more comfortable read. I think it's geared more towards like a young adult read, anyways. So
I am looking forward to it. It sounds
fun. Too. So we really appreciate you coming. I'm really sorry about the technical problems and my inability to pronounce any names. Notice I kept saying Jean-Jacques, and I wouldn't give his last name because I'm not going to mangle the name of the man who brought freedom to Haiti.
The first emperor, yeah. Also want to say thank you to everyone who came out to the nifty Donna's 50 party last week. I've picked all the winners for prizes, so check your DMs because Barb has probably DM'd the winners. I posted the winners in the group, and you've probably DM'd the winners about.
I haven't yet, only because it's been a crazy couple days. You will all get DMs. You will all have DMs in the morning.
Okay. Anyway, check your DMs because Barb is going to send out DMs to get your addresses.
That's it. All right. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you online. Okay. Bye-bye.